Dating Marcus Westfield was surprisingly ordinary in the best possible ways. Despite his campus reputation and distinctive last name, in private he was simply Marcus, the guy who texted me random photography facts at midnight, who had strong opinions about coffee brewing methods, and who kissed me like he was memorizing the moment through touch rather than sight. "You're staring again," he noted, looking up from his sketchbook. We'd claimed a corner table at the university cafe, nominally studying but mostly existing in the same space, something we'd been doing regularly in the 3 weeks since the health center incident. "Observing," I corrected. "It's different." "Semantics." But he smiled, that private expression so different from his public one. "What are you supposedly observing then?" "The way you hold your pencil. It's different from how you hold a camera. Different tools, different grips." He set down his pencil. "Though I think you just like watching my hands." Heat rushed to my face, confirming his suspicion. Maybe I'm gathering reference material for Rivera's final project. "Is that what the kids are calling it these days?" He reached across the table, fingers capturing mine in a casual gesture that still sent electricity through my nervous system. "Speaking of Rivera, how's the vulnerability assignment coming?" "Better," I admitted. "I think I finally found the right approach." The project had evolved significantly since Marcus's health revelation. What began as abstract exploration of vulnerability had transformed into something more personal, a mixed media piece using photographic elements and dimensional layering to capture the experience of seeing past carefully constructed surfaces. "I'd like to see it sometime," he said. "When you're ready." That was the thing about Marcus. He never pushed, never demanded access to works in progress. He understood creative boundaries in ways few others did. "Soon," I promised. "It's almost there." Our moment was interrupted by Zoe's arrival, accompanied by a tall guy with a carefully groomed beard and vintage glasses. "Mandatory social interaction alert," she announced, dropping into an empty chair. "Marcus, Eliot, this is Davis from my modernist poetry seminar." Davis offered a wave that managed to be both awkward and confident. "The famous roommate and the photography prodigy. Zoe talks about you guys constantly." "All lies," I assured him. "Half-truths at worst," Zoe corrected. "I only exaggerate when the narrative demands it." Marcus shifted slightly, making room for our new companions. I recognized the subtle tension in his posture, the adjustment he made when transitioning from private to social mode. But he smiled genuinely, engaging Davis in conversation about the poetry seminar with the attentiveness he brought to everything that mattered. Under the table, his knee pressed gently against mine, unspoken communication that he was okay, present. These small signals had become our language, especially in group settings where his energy sometimes flagged before he'd admit to fatigue. "We're heading to the Winter Lights installation at the Botanical Gardens tonight," Zoe announced. "You two should join. Double date energy." Marcus glanced at me, question in his eyes. We hadn't officially double dated yet, though our relationship was hardly a secret after the critiquing class incident. "Could be fun," I offered. "If you're up for it." The qualification wasn't lost on him, my subtle check-in about his energy levels. "I'd like that," he said, the slight emphasis on, like, telling me he meant it rather than just being polite. "I've been wanting to photograph the installation anyway." "Perfect." Zoe clapped her hands. "Meet at 7 by the east entrance. Dress warm. Davis says the best displays are deeper in the gardens." After they left to attend their respective classes, Marcus leaned back in his chair, study materials forgotten. "That was unexpected." "Zoe's specialty is pleasant ambushes," I explained. "You sure you're okay with going?" "We don't have to." "I want to," he assured me. "My medication schedule's stable, I've been sleeping properly, and I haven't had darkroom time in 3 days. Dr. Patel would approve." The casual way he referenced his conditions still felt like a gift, trust offered without expectation. Since the health center visit, he'd been more open about his management strategies, gradually including me in this aspect of his life without letting it dominate our interactions. "Besides," he added with a hint of mischief, "I've never been properly introduced to one of Zoe's romantic interests." I feel like I'm witnessing a rare astronomical event. Davis seems nice, I said, though I think she mainly likes him because he can quote entire Sylvia Plath poems from memory. Low bar, Marcus observed dryly. Says the guy who won me over by rescuing my coffee-soaked shirt. That was strategic, he protested. I saw potential in your Rivera sketches and decided to cultivate the connection. Cultivate the connection, I repeated, laughing. You make it sound like a business arrangement. His expression softened. Best investment I ever made. The simple sincerity of his statement caught me off guard, warmth blooming in my chest. For someone raised in the carefully crafted language of gallery politics, Marcus's moments of raw honesty felt like glimpses through a viewfinder at something rare and precious. The botanical gardens transformed at night under the winter lights installation, pathways lined with luminarias leading to more elaborate displays among the dormant flower beds and winter-hardy shrubs. Trees draped in cascading white lights reflected in still ponds, creating the illusion of stars above and below. Zoe and Davis walked ahead, her animated gestures suggesting she was either explaining something with great passion or planning world domination. With Zoe, the line between the two was often thin. Beside me, Marcus moved with the deliberate focus of a photographer cataloging potential shots, occasionally pausing to frame a perspective with his hands before capturing it with his camera. Despite the cold, he seemed energized rather than depleted, his enjoyment evident in the relaxed set of his shoulders. This is amazing, I said as we entered a tunnel of arching lights that transformed the garden path into a corridor of warmth amid winter darkness. I can't believe I didn't know about this last year. It's relatively new, Marcus explained, adjusting his camera settings. Part of the university's community outreach program. My father actually helped fund it, one of his better decisions. The casual reference to Dr. Westfield reminded me of a question I'd been avoiding. Has he said anything? About us? Marcus's hands stilled on his camera. Not directly. He's a master of the pointed silence and loaded question. He resumed, adjusting his lens. Tyler says he's been asking about my social calendar with unusual interest. That sounds ominous. It's his way of maintaining the illusion of control, Marcus said with surprising lightness. He'll come around eventually. Or he won't. Either way, it doesn't change anything important. The certainty in his voice filled me with a confidence I wasn't sure I deserved. Whatever was developing between us still felt delicate, new, yet Marcus approached it with the same quiet surety he brought to his photography. We caught up with Zoe and Davis at a display where light projections created the illusion of falling snow across a grove of white-barked birch trees. The effect was magical, transforming the familiar garden into something otherworldly. This would be a perfect backdrop for your dimensional narrative piece, Marcus observed, gesturing toward the interplay of light and shadow. The way the projection creates layers of depth. I was thinking the same thing, I admitted. The visual depth mirrors the conceptual layering. Davis looked between us with amusement. Zoe warned me about the art speak, but wow. You two really do think in compositions. Occupational hazard, I shrugged. You should hear yourselves talking poetry. Fair point, he conceded. Zoe spent 15 minutes yesterday explaining why one line break in a William Carlos Williams poem changed everything. Because it did. Zoe protested. The caesura creates a visual and rhythmic pause that literally transforms the meaning. Marcus caught my eye, suppressing a smile. There was something profoundly comfortable about this moment. The four of us in the illuminated garden, conversation flowing easily despite the newness of our combined dynamic. It felt like something I could get used to, a preview of possibilities beyond the intense bubble Marcus and I had been existing in. Later, as we wandered through a section where thousands of tiny lights created a replica of the night sky, Marcus slipped his hand into mine. His fingers were cold despite his gloves, but his grip was sure. Happy? He asked simply. The question caught me off guard with its directness. Yes, I answered honestly. This is nice. All of it. Ahead of us, Zoe laughed at something Davis said, the sound carrying clearly in the winter air. Around us, other visitors moved through the displays, their quiet conversations creating a gentle backdrop to our private moment. "Good," Marcus said. "Me too." The simplicity of the exchange belied its significance. Neither of us was particularly effusive about feelings, both too accustomed to observing rather than declaring. But in that moment, among artificial stars in the winter garden, something solidified between us, unspoken but undeniable. December arrived with end-of-semester chaos, final projects, exhibition preparations, and the peculiar frenzy that descends on campus before winter break. Marcus and I carved out moments between deadlines, sometimes just studying in comfortable silence, other times exploring the city as he showed me hidden spots he'd discovered during photography expeditions. "You're practically glowing," Leo observed during one of our rare apartment gatherings, where Zoe had insisted on proper meals amid final project madness. "It's disgusting but also heartwarming." "I'm not glowing," I protested. "I'm just less stressed than usual." "Because you spend half your time making googly eyes at Photography Boy instead of overthinking everything," Zoe called from the kitchen. "The Marcus effect is real." I couldn't entirely deny it. Something about being with Marcus calmed the perpetual self-critique that typically dominated my thoughts. His steady presence and quiet confidence created space where I felt less need to constantly prove myself. "Rivera's impressed with your vulnerability project," Leo noted, changing the subject. "She mentioned it to Professor Chin in the faculty lounge. Said you'd finally broken through to something authentic." The praise should have delighted me, but instead sent a pang of anxiety through my chest. The project had become deeply personal, revealing aspects of myself I typically kept hidden. The thought of its public display in Rivera's end-of-semester showcase felt simultaneously validating and terrifying. "Speaking of winter break plans," Zoe said, emerging with a pot of pasta that looked surprisingly edible, "is Marcus coming to meet the family? Full boyfriend experience." The question highlighted something we'd been avoiding discussing, the approaching separation of winter break. Marcus would be traveling to his father's Aspen property for an annual photography retreat with industry connections, while I'd be returning to my small hometown to help Mom with Jamie's holiday activities. "We haven't really talked about it," I admitted. "It's only 3 weeks apart." Leo and Zoe exchanged a look I couldn't quite interpret. "What?" I demanded. "Nothing," Leo said too quickly. "Just wondering about the official relationship status these days." "It's..." I hesitated, realizing we'd never actually labeled what was happening between us. "Developing. Like a photograph," Zoe quipped. "Slowly revealing itself under specific conditions." Her metaphor was more accurate than she knew. Whatever Marcus and I were building had been unfolding gradually, each layer revealing more depth without rushing the process. After dinner, as Leo and Zoe argued good-naturedly about holiday movie selections, my phone rang with my mother's weekly call. I stepped into my bedroom for privacy, settling on the edge of my bed. "Hey, Mom," I answered. "How's everything?" "Managing," she said, her voice carrying the familiar tone of controlled stress. "Jamie's winter concert was yesterday. They played beautifully." "I'm sorry I missed it," I said, guilt twinging at the reminder of all the family events my education took me away from. "They recorded it for you," she assured me. "How are finals going?" We chatted about my projects, her substitute teaching schedule, and Jamie's latest school achievements. The comfortable rhythm of family updates almost made me miss the careful way she approached the next subject. "About winter break," she began, her tone shifting subtly. "There's been a small complication with next semester's tuition installment." My stomach tightened. "What kind of complication?" "Just a timing issue," she said in the overly casual voice she used when downplaying problems. "The school district delayed some payments, and the house needed emergency plumbing work last week." "How much are we short?" I asked directly. Her hesitation told me everything. "We'll figure it out," she finally said. "I'm picking up extra shifts, and there might be a payment extension option." "Mom, how much?" "About 4,000, she admitted reluctantly. "But don't worry." 4,000. I repeated, calculations already running through my head. My partial scholarship covered most tuition, but the remaining balance came from my mother's stretched income and my own part-time work. $4,000 was a massive shortfall with the payment deadline approaching. "We have options," she insisted. "Maybe a private loan, or I could ask your uncle." "No," I interrupted, knowing how much she hated asking her brother for help. "I'll figure something out. Maybe more hours at the gallery store, or another campus job." "Eliot," her voice softened, "I don't want this to interfere with your studies. Your professors say you're doing exceptional work." "It won't," I promised, mind already racing through possibilities. "Let me look into some options and call you back tomorrow, okay?" After hanging up, I sat motionless on my bed, the evening's warm contentment replaced by cold reality. Without the tuition payment, I couldn't register for spring classes. Without registration, my housing agreement would terminate. The domino effect of consequences stretched before me like a row of falling cards. What would Marcus say if he knew? The thought arose unbidden and unwelcome. He could easily write a check for the amount without noticing the difference in his account. But the idea of him knowing about my financial struggles, possibly offering help out of obligation or pity, made my chest constrict with something between pride and fear. Our relationship existed in a space carefully separated from these realities, the disparities in our backgrounds, the different worlds we navigated outside our shared artistic connection. Introducing financial need into that delicate balance felt like a potential fracture point. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus, "Just finished mounting exhibition pieces. Still on for late breakfast tomorrow before your Rivera submission?" I stared at his message, suddenly aware of the chasm between our circumstances. While I worried about basic tuition payments, he casually mentioned mounting pieces for a professional exhibition. "Definitely. Meet at Milo's at 10? I replied, deciding in that moment not to mention the financial situation. Not yet. Not until I'd explored every possible solution independently. The decision felt both protective and dishonest, the first significant thing I'd kept from him since we'd begun whatever this was between us. But as I returned to the living room where Zoe and Leo had settled on a holiday movie, I justified the omission as temporary, practical. Why worry him with a problem that might still have a solution? 3 weeks of winter break separation stretched ahead of us, time enough to figure out the financial situation without casting a shadow over these saturated moments of connection we'd been building. Time enough to determine whether what we had could withstand the introduction of real-world complications beyond health concerns and artistic vulnerabilities. Time enough, I hoped, to ensure that when we reunited in January, it would be as students on the same campus rather than a relationship fractured by distance and circumstance.